Hello there, this is Critical from Critical Media, just taking a look at the 2025 reprint of the Golden Age Batman Omnibus, Volume 2. And what we usually do at this channel is give you an idea of what to expect if you ever come across these books in the wild. So we go over the exterior, some bonus material, art and plot points, and then a brief review at the end. Now, just before jumping into today's video, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to a company called BDCOSMOS. No, this isn't paid promotion or anything like that. It's mainly because I just got an order in from them. I just tried them out for the first time, and I was incredibly impressed by the pricing and, more importantly, the delivery methods they use. So, yes, I'm a Canuck. I'm a Canadian. And, for a lot of us Canadians, there aren't many vendors that can offer, great pre-order pricing along with the shipping. In the States, there's, like cheap graphic novels and organic price books. But their issue is that they can't ship to Canada, or should I say, they don't offer great shipping to Canada. Whereas in Canada, yeah, we do have Canadian vendors, of course. And yes, I always suggest going to your local comic shop will always give you a great price. But when it comes to online vendors in Canada, they don't seem to have the great pricing. BDCOSMOS seems to have both, where I got such incredible deals on a recent order. And yeah, it's shipped for free. Yes, you do have to reach a certain threshold. But I was more impressed by the way the books were packaged. So the books themselves inside the box were bubble wrapped. And then within the actual box itself, proper packing paper in it. So that even when I opened it up and, the box moved around, the books always stayed static within it. So that's incredible detail. They arrived in beautiful condition. So just wanted to give BDCOSMOS an excellent shout out there. Anywho, back to the nature of this channel. In terms of this Omni, yeah, for any of you who maybe have the first one, which is like 1939 to 1941, yes, these are going to carry on tradition. So it's going to be 1941 up until 43. So yes, this is now wartime United States Golden Age. So yeah, you are going to get a lot more patriotism, so to speak, in it. But nonetheless, yes, in terms of the cover design, yeah, it is hearkening to a lot more of the Batmobile. Fun fact, majority of this book, the first one, in the early days of Batman, he just had a, turbocharged roadster. Nothing, no Batman flair or pomp and circumstance. At least in the latter half of that, yes, you do eventually see the Batmobile, but it makes sense that this cover uses it, because that car, it's a lot more involved in this particular narrative. But yeah, it is another Darwin Cook design, so at least it's consistent in that sense, especially with the ribbon. And it does have the new yet retro DC logo here. At least that's the difference between the previous Omni reprint. Yeah, you have a very prominent spine design, very impressive there. And at least your typical fare on the rear. But, I do appreciate the little factoids, because it is true, you are going to get your debut of the Penguin, Two-Face, Professor Radium, that kind of jazz. So pretty impressive there. You'll also get the debut of the Bat Signal. It actually shows up the first time in this book. Now, at least underneath the dust jacket, it is, yes, your typical DC fare when it comes to the black design with just the embossed titling. Hopefully the light captures it there for you. But yeah, nothing crazy going on. But at least they did the same thing for the spine. Same kind of indentation. And nothing really going on in the rear. The book itself is about 760 pages, so to speak. So it's a decent size for an Omni, especially for Golden Age material. And in terms of, I guess, bonus material in this case, while just like on the first Omni, there's not really much going on. You're really getting nothing but content, which is great, by the way. I'm all about the content. At least there is a interview, or should I say a foreword, by Max Allan Collins. For any of you who don't know who he is, he's predominantly a novelist, or should I say he's also worked in comic books, but he's pretty much a master of the detective genre. So, aside from writing literary prose novels, yeah, he has worked on some comics, probably the Dick Tracy's of the world, folks know, but for me personally, I know Max Allan Collins mainly from The Road to Perdition. I loved that book. I mainly love the film. Actually, to this day, the film is actually my favorite comic book film of all time. Yeah, Road to Perdition. People, if you haven't watched it yet, you'll surely enjoy it, especially a lot of the actors showing up later in comic book films. But anywho, Now that we're at least past the bonus material, now we're into the art and plot points. So as I mentioned, yeah, it does kind of just begin with, I guess, yes, you got your Detective 57 here, and this is like now 1941. And one thing I like about Golden Age stories is that a lot of them, even though they don't involve a Batman rogue, they still have very clever rackets or criminal conspiracies going on. So they're definitely still intriguing, and not to mention they lead toward later stories that are getting employed. And it does make sense that, yes, the Penguin kind of serves among these kind of criminal conspiracies, because at least with the debut of Penguin here, yeah, right off the bat, he was always treated like a more sophisticated criminal. He's way more of an organized mobster or gangster than he is, your run-of-the-mill crazy rogue. And that's one thing I've always appreciated about him. Probably the craziest thing about him is, the umbrellas, the trick umbrellas. But that's about it, though. But honestly, like, he was always a legitimate or formidable foe for Batman, and I definitely appreciated that. Another thing about it is you will get, like, some other, B-listers, like, yeah, you got your Professor Radium here. He does kind of make several appearances later in Batman's career. You'll even see some issues from even 2020 with Professor Radium involved. But it does kind of bring up something I wanted to discuss. If there is a criticism about this Omni, you may notice that, and maybe you can kind of see it, but kind of the page layouts, they're very cutting the edge kind of thing. Like, some of them almost bleed off of the page. They still stay on. You're not really losing content. But I think something ended up happening where they noticed something was a little off when they first printed them, because yes, you'll notice kind of right here, I believe, was this, I think around this page, yes. You'll start to notice something. There's a little bit of, like, you could tell they're scheduling the book, the editor, because they left a little bit of the lettering from their positioning of the book. You could kind of see it here with this text here, and even on the edge of this page here as well. So I just wanted to kind of outline that. It's a very mild printing error. It doesn't hurt your experience at all. It's just something that you may see on your copy if you ever pick this up. So just be forewarned. As I said, it's not a deal breaker at all. It's just something maybe that you might notice on your copy. But again, you're getting awesome work nonetheless. Incredible designs and incredible, of course, storytelling overall. Probably one of my favorite Joker images is in this book. I think it's right here. Yeah, there it is. I love this particular page. I don't know, it has everything you can come to expect from the Joker, and it pretty much is a synopsis of the character in a nutshell. But man, very impressive work nonetheless. And yes, as you're flipping through, or as I'm flipping through it here, you're kind of seeing, sometimes you're going to get some flat designs on the art. I mean, that is kind of par for the course when it comes to Golden Age comics. But this is well beyond when Bob Kane left the series, and now you're getting new artists and new creators writing it and so forth. So, you got your Ray McGills, you got your Eric Carters and whatnot. Of course, I would give a lot of love for, like, what's his name? Henry Boltinoff, for instance. You'll see a lot of that design here, but you'll also get, like, the king himself. You'll eventually, from Jack Lehti, you'll end up getting Jerry Robinson, Probably the guy who actually created the Joker, and probably the best artist during the Golden Age. You'll kind of see a little bit later here. But yes, even with this redesign of Catwoman, yes, it is quite jarring compared to what we expect from her these days. But I'll say this about Catwoman. The way she's written, she's one of the best criminals in the series. Because she actually has very intriguing ideas. Like, she basically sets up crimes with built-in alibis. So even if they get caught, they can walk out of jail immediately, or just not even get arrested right away. Definitely impressed by, like, some of the well-thought-out kind of concepts here. Like I said, in the Golden Age, it was almost everybody had a racket and, some sort of weird spin on crime. So it was always intriguing to look at it that way. And anytime you kind of saw a story where it dealt with maybe dealing with, Nazis or fifth columnists, you would often get that writer, Don Cameron. So he should get a lot of praise as well. But now comes probably one of the most intriguing Batman rogues. Yes, the debut of Two-Face here. Man, I'll say this. Back in the Golden Age, they were very blunt about things. Like, you basically got his origin story right here. And yes, back in the day, he wasn't Harvey Dent. He was Harvey Kent. Obviously, they changed his name for obvious reasons. But, yeah, right off the bat, you're just giving... you're getting Harvey Dent's, I guess, evolution or origin into Two-Face, even technically Batman's involvement with it in a way, a very mild way. But still, they really did sell it on point. Like, if anything, you find nowadays they often repeated the same shtick that they started with the Golden Age. I'm glad that they've, at least nowadays, started to do something a little different with Two-Face. So, big ups in that sense. But anywho, yeah, just flipping through here, you're just getting more and more intriguing narratives. I'll say that. You'll get like the return of course, Scarecrow in this. If anything, Scarecrow took a long hiatus for a while, but he shows up again in this. Very awesome character, always a legitimate threat. Very impressive work always. But man, I'll say this. So I think I already said it already, but some of the ideas in these, like, it's not just, you know, the typical mobster thing. It's really very well thought out kind of adventures. It does get a little punny, and, you know, I'll say this. This is maybe the embers of when you started to notice the campy nature of Batman starting to appear, but it was still very visceral at this point. It was still pretty gangster, I'll say that. I mean, heck, you even have Batman on an MG on a cover of a book. But this is a very important one for me, at least, because you're now starting to get a lot more deeper nuances into characters, even in the Golden Age, like the way they depict Catwoman in this issue, where she's trying to go straight, so to speak, but, you know, her criminal past just keeps rearing its head, and she can't help herself, kind of thing. Very intriguing stuff. And this is, of course, when Batman's already dating that new love interest, Linda Page. They always try to get Bruce Wayne to be with another woman back in the day, with several girlfriends, because, you know, I guess there was a subtext that people thought Batman may be, you know, swinging the other way. So they always made sure to have a love interest of some kind in his narratives. So definitely appreciate that. But this is the real reason why I was bringing up this issue, is because this is where you definitely see Jerry Robinson stepping up the expectations of what the artwork should be. Like, you're getting a lot more detail. You're getting way more dynamic angles. Because admittedly, in the Golden Age, they would reuse a lot of work. But Jerry Robinson, on the other hand, you could tell he was all about adding, like, you know, that dark silhouette, or, you know, that proper lighting, or new dynamic poses. You know, he would use, like, establishing shots well, a high angle very well, you know, an excellent framing shot. Yeah, he was always on point in that respect, even back in the Golden Age. If anything, he kind of inspires the other folks later, right? But of course, like I kind of hinted earlier, we are in the wartime era, so yes, it's almost inevitable. You do have to have some patriotism in the book. And yes, you are going to have Batman go up against some sort of fifth columnist or some sort of Nazi, right? So yeah, it is par for the course for the Golden Age. But honestly, it's expected, but it doesn't hurt the narratives too much. Pretty awesome work nonetheless. And like I said, yeah, you still get the return of Scarecrow, which honestly, Scarecrow, the way he's depicted in these series, he's way more violent, or far more of a threat than you expect. Even though he's wiry, even though he's kind of a string bean, he's very formidable. Like, he has very clever plots, or you know, he actually has pretty good fighting styles and legitimate threat to him. I'll just put it that way. Awesome stuff. Now, at least for Volume 2, this is where I'm probably going to get off the train when it comes to Batman Golden Ages. So I'm only planning to get this one. I'm not really going for the third volume or anything, because like I kind of hinted, at least with Volume 3, now it's like post-war Batman. That's when I felt Batman started getting a little too campy, and, you know, McCarthyism started, and the whole Frederick Wertham thing started. So I felt like that hurt Batman in the 50s. He only really came back to me when Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams kind of took over. But hey, that's a story for another day, right? But ultimately, honestly, I do think Volume 2 is a legitimate pickup. Yeah, even though I'm getting off the train, there's a reason, because at least the stories in this were still strong. And it's no longer about my opinion at this point. It's really about your flavor of Golden Age, and I always suggest that. Maybe before even picking one of these up, just make sure that you have a certain flavor, or, you know, appetite for Golden Age stories, because some people can get rubbed the wrong way about them. Some people really love them. They can understand the charm of them. Some people, you know, they can find them passé or cliche. But I'll say that at least the Batman narratives, they were very on point. But like I mentioned, I wouldn't mind seeing your comments down below as always, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video. Y'all folks take care.